Hello, my friend. I am often asked about how people can get even more witch wave and more magic in their lives overall. And I have the answer. You can join me over on the Witch Wave Patreon. This is how you can hear from me and my other magical guests on a weekly basis via my Witch Wave Plus bi-weekly bonus episodes. And you get the regular Witch Wave episodes ad-free, and you get detailed show notes for all of it. And all Patreon members also get access to my monthly ritual workshops, which you can attend live or watch the recording of at your leisure throughout the month. Rewards for some tiers also include magical merch and contests where you can win witchly prizes, as well as early heads up about my workshops before they sell out, and opportunities to work with me one-on-one. And all backers get access to our exclusive digital coven, where you can connect to a community of other wonderful Witch Wave witches around the world. So head on over to patreon.com/witchwave and sign up. It's a magnificent way to get more magic in your life and to support the show. Thank you so much.
The world is filled with bewitching people, and you might be one too. Welcome to the podcast where art is magic is real, and reality is stranger than dreams. I'm Pam Grossman, and this is The Witch Wave.
Hello, and welcome to the Witch Wave. Now, before we get started, I just want to remind you all that I have a new YouTube channel, or rather, an old YouTube channel that we're putting a lot more Witch Wave stuff on. Please check it out. We're uploading stuff there all the time, and you can now watch video of the interviews that I do here on the Witch Wave. And bonus, you can see all my fabulous fashion as well. Lucky you. That channel is at Phantasmophile, and please do like and subscribe while you're there. It really is a huge help. Thank you so much. And happy Women's History Month. Yes, I am still going to mention that despite our current administration and Google Calendar's attempts at trying to erase any mention of gender or any other lived experience that veers from a male, white, so-called heteronormative one. Now, I've obviously written and spoken a lot about women's history, particularly through the lens of those who have been deemed witches by others, and yes, now, more often, by themselves. Witches, sibyls, priestesses, seers. Women have long been thought to possess a special sort of magic, though whether those powers have been considered worthy of celebration or derision has varied widely throughout time and context. Now, I'm not here to insist that women are inherently more intuitive than men. But having a finely tuned intuition seems to be a characteristic that is, at the very least, intentionally cultivated by and encouraged in and associated with women. And while I do not believe in gender essentialism, and I certainly know many highly intuitive men and non-binary folks, possessing a sensitive intuition and having a high capacity for communication with the spirit realm are often considered to fall on the more feminine side of the spectrum. And this association has as much to do with social power as it does supernatural power. During the 19th century, the religion of spiritualism took hold of the collective imagination. Driven in part by the mass grief of Civil War widows who had lost husbands and sons, and brought to the fore by girls and women, including the Fox sisters and Theosophy co-founder Madame Blavatsky, there was a proliferation of people engaging in such activities as mediumship, seances, and spirit photography. First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln held seances in the White House to try and make contact with the spirit of her and Abraham's son, Willie, who died of typhoid fever in 1862. And the George Saunders book, Lincoln in the Bardo, is also about Willie's ghost, just FYI. And the first woman to run for president, Victoria Woodhull, was a famed medium. As I write in my book, Waking the Witch, spiritualism may have been a soothing source of consolation when it began, but it morphed into an ethereal engine of confidence for many of the women who practiced it. And the reason for this is because in the 19th century, it was pretty much illegal and certainly highly discouraged for women to speak in public for money, unless they were practicing mediumship, because it was rationalized when a woman was channeling the spirits, it wasn't really her talking, right? It was the spirits who were speaking through her. Spiritualism and mediumship were not only important ways that women could process their grief and try and make contact with their dearly departed, they could also express themselves and find a public voice. Now, perhaps this voice came from the other side, but I believe it also came, at least in part, from within the women themselves. Spirit communication was therefore a feminine pastime of liberation, which is no wonder why so many spiritualists were also abolitionists and suffragists. And if you want to learn more about all of that, I highly recommend that you read Anne Braude's book, Radical Spirits, Spiritualism, and Women's Rights in 19th Century America. I was reminded about this history a lot when I spoke with today's guest, the musician who performs under the name Vera Sola and who was born with the name Danielle Aykroyd. And yes, as we discuss, her father, Dan Aykroyd, is the OG Ghostbuster. In our conversation today, we talk about Danielle's hauntingly beautiful music, her family's spiritual history, and how the spirits helped her find her own voice. But before we get to that, first, let's check and see what's come through on the Witch Wire.
Who is it?
Witches.
Anonymous writes, I'm a longtime listener of the podcast and a big fan of your writing. I'm always recommending your work to fully grown witches and witchlings alike. I have a question that I hope you'll consider providing me with some insight on. I have a small gift regarding divination and foresight. This usually manifests in very accurate tarot readings as well as psychic downloads. A friend of mine is having fertility issues and is putting a lot of pressure on me for reassurance and answers. I am fully in support of her and her journey in a mundane way, checking in with her regularly, sending her information, and being present when needed. But my instincts tell me that she will not be able to have children with her current chosen partner. I have no intention of telling her this, as firstly, she won't want to hear it. Secondly, it will severely damage our relationship. And thirdly, I do not want the responsibility of imparting this news. I have put boundaries regarding this in place, but it is causing friction. Help! Do you have any tips on navigating tricky situations such as this? Hi there, and thank you so much for your sweet words and for this question. And let me just say right off the bat, it sounds to me like you are very clear on how to handle this situation, which is to keep your intuitive messages to yourself for the time being. And as you spelled out yourself, you're choosing not to share this information in order to protect your friend's emotional life and also to protect your friendship. And I completely understand why this feels right to you in this instance. So I think the question underneath the question is, how do you deal with the fact that this is causing some friction? And I suppose I'm wondering what that friction is. Is your friend sensing that you're holding back? And is she pressuring you to give her answers? Or are you just feeling your own internal friction because it's uncomfortable not being fully transparent with her? I think if the friction is on her end, you just need to be lovingly firm with those boundaries and say that you're not able to use your gifts when it comes to such sensitive matters and that you're sorry, but you're committed to supporting her in other ways. And I don't know that you need to give her any more explanation than that. If she keeps pushing you on it, just stay firm. And if she gets mad, that's really on her, because this is your boundary. And I do sympathize with her because her emotions are really strong around this topic. It's obviously a very charged situation for her. But I think remaining gently firm is a wise idea if indeed that's what your instincts are telling you to do. Trust that. Now, on the other hand, if the friction is coming from you, in other words, if you're feeling guilty about withholding this info, or it's just hard for you to keep this secret inside, I would urge you to talk confidentially with someone else about it. And this someone should be a person who does not know her. Or you could even just journal about it if you don't have someone you feel you can confide in. But I really recommend you just getting it off your chest and giving yourself a place to put it. And in this way, you can also reinforce for yourself the reasons that you've listed for me, why you've decided not to share this with her. And to be clear, this kind of thing happens with friends on the more mundane side all the time too. Like, have you ever had a friend whose partner you didn't like or who made some decision you didn't agree with? We all have to pick and choose when to speak up and when to bite our tongues. Certainly if someone is in danger or if their well-being is imperiled, I think that's a good time to make that choice. But when it comes to someone going through a life experience and learning things that they might need to learn on their own time, I think that's a time when you might choose to just let things play out. Maybe there's a reason she's supposed to go through this journey on her own. Ultimately, it comes down to choosing what the kindest and most loving path is, and frankly, not meddling too much in other people's business. And of course, we don't always get it right. But if we're operating from that intention of love, from a high frequency place of compassion and care, then that's really the best that any of us can do. And it sounds to me that that's what you're doing here, and I hope that you and she can come to peace with that soon. Good luck. Now, on to my guest. Danielle Aykroyd is a singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist who performs under the name Vera Sola. Sometimes called the lost love child of Leonard Cohen and Nancy Sinatra, Vera Sola's smoky vocalization and searing, soaring songs have a cinematic aspect to them and would feel equally at home in a David Lynch film or a prairie full of phantoms. As a trained poet, her lyrics are twisting and imagistic, marked alternatively by restrained mystery and resplendent, wild-eyed rage. Her 2018 debut album, Shades, which she plays every instrument on, is a study in shadowy Americana and mesmeric incantation. Her sophomore album of 2024, Peacemaker, is a more expansive extravaganza with lush orchestration, dark dreamscapes, and tales of vengeance, heartache, and haunting.
So say, come and spark up the forest. Outlay the twilight her glow. Make way for the dark to set asunder. Our city by the ashes overthrow. Oh, it's a bad idea.
Vera Sola's new EP, Ghostmaker, is a pared-down resurrection of Peacemaker tracks and also features a brand new song called The Ghostmaster's Daughter.
Well, the Ghostmaster's daughter saw the murderer's son from afar. She smiled at him sweetly, beckoned across at the bar. He asked her to come to the hanging of the king's children's burial scar, performed by the blood of the lady, pink-suited picker of brains from cars.
Vera Sola's music is some of my very favorite of the last few years, so it was a great pleasure to get to wade into its magic with its maker. Danielle joined me remotely from her studio in LA, and you can also watch the video of our conversation over on my YouTube channel, which is at Phantasmaphile. Vera Sola, welcome to the Witch Wave.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I am such a big, enormous, gargantuan fan of yours and your music, so this is a true thrill. I so appreciate you making the time.
Likewise, I feel the same about you.
Oh,
your
stop
stuff.
it.
I do.
Stop it,
I'm not
you.
lying. I'm not lying.
How lovely. Thank you. So I'm going to start with potentially an awkward question.
Sure.
But I just want to make sure we do our table setting properly. Your stage name is Vera Sola. You also have a civilian name. How would you like me to address you today in this conversation?
Well, when I first started doing this, which wasn't very long ago, I mean, it was 8 years. I think I told you when we scheduled this, it was 8 years ago today that I was sort of given this mantle. So when I first started, it was totally a pseudonym, and I was trying to hide behind it. It was basically a mask.
Mm-hmm.
Because until 8 years ago today, I was absolutely unable to sing, and I didn't make music of my own. I didn't do any of this. So I felt like I needed a mask in order to be able to put myself out there.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of the past few years, what's behind the mask has become too big. So the mask is too small to contain what it represents at this point. So you can call me Danielle or Vera, whatever. It doesn't matter. Danielle's fine.
That is such a splendid image that the mask has become a little bit too tight for you. Does that mean that you think you're going to stop using that pseudonym?
I've thought about it because it can be somewhat of an albatross at times. I mean, when I decided to actually take that name, I really didn't think that I was going to have a career, and I didn't think other people would be saying it to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd even said it out loud. when I set it forth as, the symbol for this. But it's more of an energy more than anything else. So I don't think so. I mean, I do other work and I make other music and I do all sorts of things.
Mm-hmm.
But for now and for the future, I think I can still inhabit this space.
Well, it's such a beautiful name, and I would love to hear how you came up with it. And I'll just kind of say that I love the idea of alter egos and pseudonyms and magical names. I just think there are these really powerful containers to allow us to access different energies and different aspects of ourselves. So how did you come up with that beautiful name?
The story of how I got the music probably should come before getting the name.
Oh, let's do it.
Because I don't know if it will make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, God, I mean, it depends on how deep we want to go to make very short.
Oh, we want to go deep, Danielle. Come on. Yeah, let's go to the core of the earth.
Sure, let's go to the core of the earth. So
we always say in my family that we don't do small talk. We only do tall talk. So yeah, I'm just ready. Whatever you want to hit me with.
It depends on, let's see. How deep do we want to go? I kind of have to check.
Yeah, check in with yourself.
Very long story to make it as short as possible. I was born into a family of spiritualists. On my father's side, it goes back really deep. But it was always a very patriarchal thing. I was always told the men in my family carried the magic, essentially. And I came into this world a very sensitive child. Indignant to be incarnated. Again, absolutely. If you see my photos of me from when I was a baby, it's like, what am I doing here again?
You were pissed.
I was pissed off.
Yeah.
As a kid, I really was tapped into my magic as much as I possibly could be with that indignance. So, I would leave my body at night and I always had a really deep dream life and speaking to plants and all of this. Then, with the course of things as they go, living in the Western society we live in, and compounding trauma and abuse, I became completely detached from myself and from my soul. Completely, like, total soul loss.
Dissociation.
Full dissociation, like a lot of drugs, a lot of everything that I could to not, be in my body, but also to not confront many things that I was seeing that I didn't understand. So spirits and energies and all sorts of things. I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have anybody to tell me, even though I had this lineage on my father's side. It wasn't this kind of thing. It was always like, oh, well, we talk to dead people and dead white people. I mean, they didn't say that, but that's what it was.
The implication, yeah.
The implication, sure. And so the further and further I got away from my soul, from the gifts that I was born with, the sicker I got. And there were all sorts of things over the course of my life that there were these moments where it was like myself, my deepest self, my highest self, or the spirits gathered around me would try to wake me up. And all sorts of wild, wild things happened.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until I was 27 years old, basically, February 17th, 18th, 19th, 2017, so 8 years ago, that I had an experience that broke me out of my shell. And I was given music, essentially. And I'd been playing music a little bit before with a partner of mine and his band, but I wasn't writing music. I wasn't really playing music. I had memorized bass lines and was like playing along with him. He saw something in me that I didn't know that I had, but I wasn't expressing myself through music. And I was told after this experience that I needed to make a record.
Do you want to talk about what the experience was? That's my first question. And related, when you say you got a message, is it from the spiritual world? As much as you feel comfortable sharing around that. Yeah.
At that point, I couldn't differentiate between who was speaking to me, which I can now. But I think it was a message from my soul, from the deepest part of my soul.
Yeah.
That was giving me this message that was saying, you have to sing and you have to write music. This is a big part of the reason why you're here.
Yes. And you got this message during some kind of a experience.
Basically, the best way to put it is kind of like a 3-day mystical experience, which I've had a number of those in the course of my life where I've kind of like entered
an altered state.
An altered state.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally get it. Okay. So you were 27 when this happened.
Yeah.
You get this message that's like, you're here to make music. I'm obviously paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And hopefully it was much more grand and lofty than that.
Not really. I'm sure it was something just like that. Just like go make music.
Like,
Yeah.
baby, just fucking do it.
Do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so when did the name come to you?
Yeah. So after getting that message, I went into a studio and I recorded my first record, Shades. And I did it by myself. I mean, I had an engineer there with me, but it was very important that it was the unbroken force that was coming through me. No one else could touch it. I couldn't let anybody else play music on it.
Wow.
And in that process, I heard my voice for the first time. I opened up my mouth and these voices came out of me that I didn't know I had. And I made this record and I didn't know what to do with it because it was like, what? Okay, I made this thing. And people were telling me that I should start to perform it, that it was something that should be heard.
Mm-hmm.
I really made it for myself. But I booked a show and I didn't know what I was going to call myself because Danielle had never sung before. It wasn't going to be Danielle.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the name Vera. You know, in Latin, it means truth. That's what I was going for, really. And that was the vow that I made in making this music, was that I was going to express my truth and be a channel and vessel for truth. It started as Vera, and then right as I played that first gig, another artist blew up on Spotify under the name Vera, and I was like told by people I was now working with that I needed to differentiate that. So I added the Sola to it as kind of an inside joke of like the only Vera, but then you can also translate it to mean truth alone.
Mm-hmm.
But then the other funny, really amazing thing that came out of it was that later on, after, you know, like a little fire had started and I was now performing in other places and I was in Europe and it was written on like my road cases. And this Italian woman came up to my drummer and was like, why do you have that horrible thing written on your road cases? He was like, what are you talking about? It's the band name. And it turns out in the Roman dialect, it means like kind of disappointing, which to me is pretty funny because it's also like, okay, you're going to say that you're going after truth and yet you're going to run from your real name. Like, okay, it's going to be kind of disappointing. Running from yourself is always a little bit disappointing.
Oh my goodness.
Since then, it's just been coming back even to like the core of the thing is how can this be more of me as it is an alter ego? How can we merge so that it's not me running from myself, you know?
Exactly. You know, I'm very interested in this topic. I have a new book that's coming out. It's all about creativity and magic, essentially. And there's a whole section on alter egos. And I was researching that section and, of course, reading about Beyonce and her Sasha Fierce alter ego. And it's interesting because she says pretty much the same thing, that she had to have Sasha Fierce to help her access this part of her. But then she learned how to like integrate it and now she doesn't need it as much. And, you know, it makes me think of RuPaul, who says like drag is this superhero costume, but actually you can access those powers anytime.
Totally.
So it sounds like you're in this time of like integration that feels really exciting, at least to hear about.
It is really exciting. It's been a tremendous, tremendous gift, a tremendous healing gift, and a tremendous gift just to my daily life. I mean, and even the way that my stagecraft and stage persona has changed over the course of these years has now helped me to live a better mundane life, you know, more embodied, more free, more liberated, and more in touch with the wonder of things.
Oh, yeah. How beautiful. So let's talk a little bit about your music. You know, certainly I'll be playing some during the episode, but how do you describe it? I'm sure that's maybe even an annoying question to be asked, and I'll just start. I understand it's annoying to be compared to other artists, but I hope you take this in the spirit that is intended, which is pure admiration. When I first heard your music, because I loved and still love Shades so much, Leonard Cohen, Tom Waits, I also heard a little bit of like, not your register, but that cavernous, echoey vastness that I get from even like a Patsy Cline or, you know, some of those singers that I think of very like gothic Americana or something. Is any of that in your brew intentionally?
I like to say the music I make is kind of like, these are all the things I like.
Yes.
I don't know how to be anyone but myself. So, you know, I've never tried to make a record that sounds like anything. But it all has seeped in and has shaped me. So like that first record was very much influenced by Rain Dogs, Tom Waits' Rain Dogs, because like when I first heard that, I was like, oh my God, you can make percussion out of all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it sounds so much better than like, I don't like slick. I'm such a tactile person, and I want my music to feel tactile, to feel of the earth, even if it's ethereal. Like I want it to be rooted. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So for sure. And then, yeah, I mean, Leonard Cohen, I play guitar probably most like him than anything else, but that didn't come from anything intentional. Like I just had to learn how to play guitar very fast in order to make this record and in order to then perform it. And that was what came out. So yeah.
So incredible. So did you know how to play guitar before you were 27?
Not really. I tried, but I have like a very karmic relationship with it where I kind of hate it and we battle, and it's something that I know that I should be able to do and should do, but never wanted to practice and never had an access point. Like I tried a couple of teachers and it just failed miserably. So no, really, I made these songs and then I had to figure out how to play them and then figure out how to play them live. So no, I mean, not like that. I didn't know how to play like I know how to play now.
That's so incredible to me. And I find that really inspiring because I think, clearly you have so much talent and some of that is an innate gift. But I think it's helpful for listeners who have been fed this story that if you don't start figuring out who you are or what your gifts are by the time you're like 12 years old, then you're fucked.
Mm-hmm.
And in my personal experience, I'm in my 40s now, and I'm like, I just keep expanding and leveling up and trying new things. And I think that's also a narrative that is as true as the prodigy narrative,
Totally. I mean, I was absolutely bound up by that. Even at 12 years old, I was saying to myself, oh no, it's too late for me to do this. I mean, I can remember thinking that at 6.
Wild.
And it's never, ever, ever too late. And if I can do it, like that is a big part of, I think, like why I'm here is as an example to show people, like, if I can do this, I promise you, you can do it. Because the terror in me, the complete inability to sing, the hatred for practicing. Like, I am telling you, all of this bondage that I put around myself and this conditioning that told me that I couldn't do what I knew that I wanted to do and that it's never too late. Never, ever, ever.
Yes.
Never. That's that.
Well, thank you for that. That's definitely a message that I've been trying to internalize more and more so, and I so appreciate it. I know so many people listening are going to appreciate that too. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you, as it so often is, by Mithras Candle. In ancient times, candles were more than mundane sources of light. They held sacred significance, embodying hope, renewal, and comfort during the darkest hours. And with my friends at Mithras Candle, this tradition is upheld with reverence. Made by the hands of my mythic and scientific pals in Philadelphia, each Mithras candle is a testament to purity and craftsmanship using the most sacred of materials, beeswax. Picture the gentle flicker of Mithras beeswax candles, carrying that gorgeous natural aroma of honey and floral notes. And while their Byzantine hand-dripped halcyon pillars steal the show, Mithras offers a variety of shapes and colors, including seasonal delights like the upcoming pink for spring. Collaborations for 2025 include a partnership with another Witchwave friend, Zoo's Incense, giveaways with your favorite witchy brands, and an exclusive luxury line of 24-karat gold and silver leaf candles inspired by angel magic. Are you ready to illuminate your space with arcane luxury? Visit mithrascandle.com today and use the new offer code WITCHWAVE to enlighten your world with 25% off your first order. That's M as in magic, ITHRAS candle.com and use offer code WITCHWAVE, all one word, for 25% off your first order. The Witch Wave is sponsored by BetterHelp. Who's your support system and how have they changed your life? When I was much younger, I was not a joiner. I identified a little bit as a lone wolf, in fact. No, this is because, yes, I was a little weirdo. And so in junior high and high school, I really only had a select couple of people who I felt comfortable with and who I felt really got me. But as I've gotten older, I've found my support network, and I feel so fortunate now because my friends, my coven, and my therapist all offer different kinds of support, whether that's emotional, spiritual, or some combination thereof. We're not meant to go through life alone. And in a society that glorifies hyper-independence, it's easy to forget that we're all better when we have a support system behind us. Community is everything, and having different people that you can turn to in times of sorrow and celebration is so vital for our well-being. And therapy in particular can be such a good source of support for any area of your life. I think it's high time that we shift the focus from the false narrative that doing it all on your own and not needing anyone else is a good goal, when in fact, we do better, we feel better when we ask for help. We are better when we lean on each other. Going to therapy has been such a huge factor in my well-being because I know that I have someone there I can lean on and connect to through all the ups and downs of my life. My therapist is a crucial part of my support network because I know that I can bring anything I'm going through to our sessions, and she's not going to judge me, and she'll help me come up with strategies to thrive and to deepen my connection with others. I truly wish that everyone on earth would and could go to therapy. I'm not even kidding. And BetterHelp makes therapy more accessible for more people. That's because it's fully online, making therapy affordable and convenient, serving over 5 million people worldwide. Through BetterHelp, you can access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. And you can easily switch at any time for no extra cost. Build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/witchwave today and get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/witchwave. Welcome back to The Witch Wave. I want to dive into some of the imagery of your albums.
Yeah.
One of the through lines, and I know it's now a sensitive topic, but it's fire.
Oh, yeah.
And I know you live in LA. When I was researching for this conversation, I know that before the wildfires that just happened this year, that a whole different wildfire came very close to. Was it your home or your mom's home?
My mom's, and my mom lived in the Palisades. So the last record I made, Peacemaker, was so much about fire. I mean, the first song on that record, called Bad Idea, it's about many, many things, but very much about all of the terrible things that we are doing to our planet and to our mother. The refrain is, "Oh, poor California." That's what it is. And I just came yesterday from my mom's house survived this time. It's a miracle.
Good. What a blessing.
It's a blessing and it's a curse. It's horrible over there.
Yeah.
It is actual hell. But anything can be a gift if you're willing to dig through the ashes for it. There is treasure at the bottom of anything. But yes, I have had a lot of fire in my life, and there's a lot of wildfire all over my records.
Yeah.
And I never thought that I'd be dealing with this kind of wildfire, but here I am.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you're okay. And I mean, I see you behind you. There are beautiful instruments, and it seems
Yeah.
like you have a place and everything is okay for you and yours right now.
Yeah, there was no loss of physical objects for me personally. I mean, there's a lot we have to throw away at my mom's house. It's like, everything's covered in ash.
Yeah, sure.
Fire has been an obsession of mine since I was a child, and wildfire specifically. I was born in California and grew up here for a few years as a child, and always had this tremendous fear of it. And that was actually, I think, bound up in my music as well, like coming to music and coming to my power. There was this kind of fear of fire and the purification of fire and what that would mean. But my mom evacuated her place, and we came to terms with the fact that we might lose everything there. And then my house was also in an evacuation zone, and we had to leave there. Looking around as I packed the bag that I had been like preparing to pack my entire life, essentially,
Mm.
I realized I don't really need any of this stuff.
Yep.
If it's here when I return, I'm blessed. But actually, like all of these clothes that I thought meant so much to me, and all of these books, and even all of these instruments, like what really matters is not the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great lesson for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Personally, that's good medicine for me.
Yeah, it's liberating, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you said something earlier about, I forget the exact phrase, but something about you finding the fire in yourself as a performer and an artist. And I think so many of these gifts, they can have like their shadow side and their light side, of course.
Mhm.
And it makes me think about the title of your album, Peacemaker. It's such a beautiful, evocative title. Certainly throughout the album, I would say there's a lot of light and a lot of shadow. There's, brightness and beauty. And there's also real like violence and terror throughout the album. So maybe we could use the title Peacemaker as a jumping off point to talk about those dualities that are so present in your work and certainly in that album. Where did that title come from for you?
That was a gift that landed, just like kind of downloaded in me. But the whole record was really grown up around the final song, which is called Instrument of War, which is one of the earliest songs that I ever wrote.
I love that song.
Thank you.
I'm just going to
love
keep
that
saying that
song,
every
too.
time you bring up a song, though. Let's be honest.
Thank
But
you.
keep going. Keep going.
That song is very powerful. And I feel very blessed to have been able to bring that song in. Like, that's one of those songs. It's like, that isn't mine. That's from somewhere else.
Mhm.
And I was just a vessel for that one. But the whole record kind of grew up around that. I saw that as the thematic centerpiece of it. And I thought about naming the record Instrument of War, but I went through in the process. I made that in 2019. And since then, I've lived multiple lifetimes and have gone through a series of deaths and rebirths and transformations. I'm not the same person I was when I made that record. And I was full of a lot of anger when that record was made. Like truly, truly destructive anger, destructive toward myself. And over the past many years since that thing was recorded, I've found all of these other ways to channel that anger. And in thinking of what I was going to call it, it was like, okay, do I name this record Instrument of War, which is a prayer for war? And I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be in this place of like, I am praying for war so that I can, pardon me, burn everything down.
Yeah.
Because that's where I was like, I just like, come at me. But I also didn't want to be in this place of spiritual bypass because I hate that.
Yeah.
Of like, no, I wasn't ever angry. And no, I don't get angry anymore. Like, no, that's not me. And so when Peacemaker landed, it made so much sense because the Colt 45 Peacemaker was the gun that tamed the American West, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's the original, I mean, for an American, like the original instrument of war. And it harkens back to my mother's side of the family. Like my mom's side were gunslingers and buffalo hunters and like terrible, terrible things. So it calls back to that, but it also has this imagery in it that is beautiful. And so like, how do we reclaim these symbols and transmute them? Like, that's what I do with my music. How do I take my anger, my prayer for war, and spin it so that I'm now offering it as a prayer for peace? how do I take these symbols, this like violent imagery, and apply it to music in a way where some of that energy is shifted. And I realized, like, also just personally, like, I am now the peacemaker in my family. I am the peacemaker on many levels in my life.
Yeah.
And making peace with myself is the biggest part of that, right? So
Absolutely.
there's a lot.
Yeah. It's like
And it can get so
holographic.
deep.
Yeah. Levels on levels.
I know, it's string theory.
Do you know what it makes me think of, though? Have you ever been to the Winchester Mystery House? Are you familiar with that?
I'm familiar with it. I
Yeah.
haven't been, but yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's like her atonement, right? For her husband's sins. Is that correct?
Yes. So for listeners, the Winchester Mystery House, you can visit it. I think it's outside San Francisco. I was there a long time ago, but it's essentially a house that was built by the widow and heiress to the Winchester rifle fortune.
Mm-hmm.
So her husband dies. She inherits all this money, which was made from guns and killing many, many people. And as the lore goes, she decided to build this house and she kept adding all these different rooms. And some people say it's because the ghosts of all the people that the guns have killed were kind of haunting her. And so she kept building more and more rooms. So this house is insane. It's dozens, if not hundreds of rooms. And there are staircases that go to nowhere that are said to confuse the ghosts and weird doors, you know, that lead to the outside that you can like just fall out of. It's wild. I think she was also quite a genius, you know, living alone. So it is entirely possible that people just said this about her and kind of witchified her. For listeners, I recently had Leela Taylor on the show who wrote a book called Sick Houses, which is all about haunted houses. And she has a great little section about the Winchester Mystery House. Your album made me think of her because it seems like it's also this album where like ghosts are baked into the cake of the music, to use way too many metaphors. Yeah. And also that duality of like the gun as the peacemaker, but also this weapon that can inspire someone to be really creative in this like really lavish, grand scale. And so I wondered if we could like go a little deeper on the topic of ghosts.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this sensitively because I understand probably talking about your dad can be fucking exhausting, and I want to respect that boundary. At the same time, for those that don't know, your dad was a fucking Ghostbuster, right? And
the Ghostbuster.
Yes. I mean, we're talking Dan Aykroyd, we're talking co-writer with Harold Ramis of the Ghostbusters. And for those who also don't know, and I feel weird telling you about your dad, you know this, but for listeners, your father has gone on to do a lot of different projects in nonfiction around the paranormal and has really seemed to claim himself as a spiritualist. Like, this is real, and you were raised in that family, which you talked about already. And I was thinking about it in regard to your new song, which I think is so beautiful. This is off your new EP called Ghost Maker.
Yeah.
And the song is called The Ghost Master's Daughter. Which also felt like a metatextual thing going on. I know it's not about your dad necessarily, but...
It's not, but the Ghostmaster's daughter is me. I mean, it is my coming out because I hid for so long. But yeah, of course. And it's not Ghostbuster for a reason. It's Ghostmaster for a reason. Yeah.
Ooh, tell me about the reason.
I mean, I don't want to get super into that.
Okay.
But it specifically isn't Ghostbuster.
Mm-hmm.
It's other kinds of ghosts.
Yeah.
You know?
They're not haunting you or controlling you. You are in charge of them, perhaps?
Yeah, sure. You could say that. Yeah.
What does the word ghost evoke for you? You know, you talked about spirits, you talked about getting messages, you talked about having these gifts. What is your relationship to ghosts?
Well, I differentiate between ghosts and spirits.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather used to say a spirit is a consciousness, and generally a ghost is an energetic imprint on space-time. So somebody walks up and down a flight of stairs for 40 years, that is imprinted in that space. And so that's a ghost. But you can also have that as, like, if something very violent happens that releases an explosion of energy that then imprints something on a space.
So it's like a residual energy that's left behind. It's not the entity itself.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that's how I've always thought about it. So ghosts are more residue, and spirits you interact with in a meaningful way, you know.
And so how do you interact with spirits or ghosts? when you're writing songs and when you're performing songs?
Well, I don't think I get so much from the ghosts themselves, though every house I've ever lived in has been super haunted. I grew up in Los Angeles in Mama Cass's home,
Whoa.
which is very, very haunted.
Mm.
And that's like famously so. Very many people who have lived there
Mm-hmm.
have had the exact same experiences. And same thing in Canada where my dad lives. That's our family farm. I'm the 9th generation on that farm. And that's essentially where Ghostbusters was born because
Mm-hmm.
my family hosted seances there and my grandfather saw things and all of that was passed down. So ghosts, not so much, though. Like, I do believe that I get most of my music from spirits,
Yeah.
whether that's ancestors or otherwise, or plant spirits, like mostly plants.
I love that. And without prying too much, but I'm going to try.
Go for it.
When you're interacting with these spirits, is there any sort of intentional ritual you're doing? Are you lighting a candle? Are you meditating? Or can it just come at you in the grocery store?
It depends. I used to not be in control of it, and it would happen when I wasn't necessarily ready, and it would scare me quite a bit. But mostly for me, I do dream work. And so I go into other spaces when I'm dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
And usually the liminal space between sleep and waking is very powerful and a powerful time to connect. But I can also do so with certain trance and meditation practices.
Beautiful. And these plant spirits, are these spirits that you're connecting with when you're walking? Are these plant spirits you're ingesting? All of the above?
Yeah, all of it. Sure.
Yep. Gorgeous. And what about when you're performing? You know, you talk about how you found your voice when you were 27. There's a difference between finding your voice in a studio and then doing that in front of lots of people. So how have you been able to access your voice and your confidence in front of a crowd?
So it's changed so much. My first show, I mean, it was kind of astounding to me that I was able to get up there and do that. Because, like I said, being terrified my whole life, singing for the first time in a studio to no one, except for the engineer who was with me, and then singing out in front of people. It was amazing the first time I did it, but still, it took practice, as anything does, to be in my body while doing so. So I think I would initially leave my body when I would go on stage. It would be just like channeling. I would just step outside and
let something take over.
And I just wasn't in me. I mean, I was always kind of moving and stuff, but I had a lot of practices, I think, at that point, unintentional practices that would keep me from really inhabiting myself. And over the course of the past few years, especially this past year, where I was touring with a band that I really felt held and supported by, I was able to feel for the first time like the joy and pleasure of singing from within my body and using my body itself as a resonant instrument and using movement as a way to modulate the energy that was coming out of me. And that has been the greatest gift, is this embodiment piece. Yeah.
I love that so much. And it also makes me think of just, you know, with experiences I've had where if I'm able to get out of my ego and stop being worried about how I'm being perceived and judged, and I'm like, no, I'm connecting to something bigger. Like I'm here for a bigger purpose. Yes, it's about me, but it's really not, right? And it sounds like that's also part of what you've landed on as well as an artist and as a performer.
Absolutely. And I think especially the piece about judgment. Judgment is something that I've really had to contend with. I mean, the name Danielle means God is my judge, or only God will judge me. But built into that is judgment, right? So it's like I have to come up against, like, okay, if only God's going to judge me. And also like the judgment of God. Jesus Christ, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's heavy.
It's heavy, but beautiful if you like retool what God means to you. And ultimately, like, the more myself that I become, I think the less people judge me. It's kind of funny that way, right? Like, you're worried that if you're your weird self, people are going to judge you for it, but who cares about those people? And then the people that you need to reach will find you and receive you with more open and embracing arms. And that being able to flip that switch, I mean, I think it's awakening in a way that's really cool.
Yeah. On that note, we're going to take another quick break and we'll be right back. This season of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab. For 20 years, indie scent artist Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab, known affectionately as BPAL, has been formulating perfume oils for each month's full moon, inspired by their colorful names and descriptions in historical almanacs. 2025 will be no exception. Look for their monthly launches called A Little Lunacy, which include not only these limited edition scents for fellow lunatics, but also an ongoing series of perfumes inspired by classical artworks, and some which raise funds for a variety of charitable causes. The lab's general catalog is teeming with perfume oils, hair gloss sprays, beard oils, and bath oils, which can be yours year-round, covering a truly bewildering range of scent types and inspirations that include cinema, Gothic literature, and occultism. To that end, BPAL recently brought back a recurring scent series called An Evening with the Spirits, drawing from legends and historical accounts of Victorian-era spiritualism. These haunting scents, such as Psychodynamic Discharge and the Fox Sisters, will remain in Black Phoenix Alchemy Lab's web shop well into 2025. Month by month, year by year, the lunacy continues at blackphoenixalchemylab.com. This episode of The Witch Wave is brought to you by Dear Antigone. If you're here at The Witch Wave, you probably identify as a witch or are at least witch curious. So if you've been craving a Witchcraft 101 course, you are in luck. Introducing Magic Lessons by Dear Antigone. In this self-paced course, Antigone guides you through the art of connecting with your intuition and inner magical powers and guides in the unseen realms. Learn all about correspondences, practices, spellcrafting, and general magic goodness so you can hone your powers and live the life you want to lead. Now, this isn't a one-size-fits-all program. It's a journey crafted to tap into your inner wisdom and reveal your unique magic. Work with your lineage and the soul threads that call to you. Plus, you'll join a community of kindred spirits on the same path, learning, growing, and supporting each other along the way. There's no pressure and no deadlines. Just the freedom to explore at your own pace. Be the witch you want to be. Head over to dearantigone.com and learn more about magic lessons today. That's dearantigone.com. Hi, Witch Wavers. I have exciting news. At long last, we have some new Witch Wave merch available for you now through TeePublic. We decided to go with TeePublic for our new Witch Wave merch because it is a print-on-demand site, which means you can get different variations of the Witch Wave logo printed on t-shirts, mugs, totes, stickers, magnets, notebooks. Oh my gods, the sky's the limit. And the shirts come in different styles and fabrics and colors and are available in sizes small through 5XL, so you can order whatever you'll feel you're most magical in. So head on over to witchwavepodcast.com/shop.
Make me an instrument of war. Lord, pack me my pistol, bring me my sword. Load me up with landmines, bury me in concubines. Take me downtown where the bullets are. See, I don't take prisoners no more.
Welcome back to The Witch Wave. I want to ask you about Elvis Perkins. I'm a huge fan of his music, and I had no idea you were friends and worked together. And so once I started getting into your music and then I learned about that, I was like, of course, that makes such perfect sense. Like just sonically and texturally, I can see the connective tissue there.
Sure.
How did you come to start making music together?
So Elvis and I grew up across the street from each other when we were kids. He's older than me. Yeah, he was my neighbor in Los Angeles here. And I've known him my whole life. And then we reconnected many years back and were dating for a while. And it was a supremely deep, deep, deep relationship. And he's the one who asked me to be the bass player in his band.
Oh, I see.
He saw music in me. So I toured with him, even though I didn't think that I could. And then I made Shades at this point in my life where we were splitting up. And that was excruciating because he is one of the great loves of my life. I love him so much. And I thought, like, I will not be able to live if I'm not in a romantic relationship with him. But it was so beautiful because as we split, I was able to make my own music. Because I think if I had stayed with him, I would have been in service to him and his remarkable, remarkable songs.
Yes.
Which are still my favorite.
Ah.
I mean, I've grown up listening to them. I love them so much. But the cool thing too now is that because it was so important to us to maintain the depth of our love, even though we're not romantically involved anymore, now he's been playing bass in my band.
Ah.
So it's come full circle.
Gorgeous. Oh, I live for when life does that. That is so beautiful.
Yeah. And yesterday was the 10-year anniversary of I Obeyed, which is his beautiful record that he made.
Everyone needs to go listen to that. And honestly, all of his records. He's so, so splendid. Oh, I love this story. And I love that you're able to maintain a friendship and still collaborate and inspire each other and support each other. That's so beautiful.
Totally.
So I want to make sure we talk about you as a writer because I love your lyrics. I read that you studied poetry and literature in college. So when you are sitting down to write, I understand that some of the words are coming from this other place, but you're an amazing craftsperson too. What is your writing process like?
It's really all over the place. It totally depends on the situation, what I'm going through. Everything for me is in cycles. So there will be fallow periods where I really don't write much at all. And then there will be periods where words are just falling out of me and I'm trying to catch up to them, really.
Yep.
And it can go so many different ways. Sometimes it starts with just one line and then it'll take years for a song to be written or a poem to be written. And then sometimes it's literally a 10-minute process and the whole thing comes out fully baked. Just like done. And sometimes multiple songs don't quite work. And then you realize, oh, that's because they are one song and you just need to chop a bunch of stuff and put it together. I consider myself like a writer before anything. You would have never been able to get me to make any music or play any music. I was a writer. From the time I was a child, I was a writer.
Yeah. And why did you decide to revisit some of your songs? Because I actually saw you, gosh, forgive me, I forget what late night show you were just on.
Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, and you crushed it.
Thank you.
I'm like, who cares about him? You and the other performers just crushed it. It's such a beautiful rendition. That's the Milk Carton Boys. Is that correct? That you were accompanied by? My understanding of this EP is, in addition to the original song we spoke about already, that a lot of it is kind of revisiting older music, right? So what brought that to your attention? Why did you decide to go back and give those songs some more love?
Well, really, they're all songs that were either on the last EP, Peacemaker, or Ghostmaster's Daughter was supposed to be on that record and didn't make the cut because it just wasn't quite right. But those songs are really great.
Agree.
As songs. And they can hold a lot when it comes to arrangement. Like, I have a lot of fun arranging and rearranging my songs. Yeah, they like to wear different clothes and dress up in different outfits. I don't know. And for these ones, like that record Peacemaker is so big and expansive and bombastic
vast.
And maximalist, vast.
Yes.
Strings and
cavernous.
all of it. It's so much shit on there.
Opulent. Give it to me.
Every Pro Tools track max. And, it's cool to then revisit and see like, oh, what were these songs when I actually first wrote them? And how did I envision them when I first wrote them before all of the flickerings started coming around and I started hearing all of this other stuff and seeing all of this other stuff that was going to go onto them. So yeah, these are just the way that the songs kind of were. So there's this song Hands, which is my favorite to play live. And in the course of our performing it over the years, even before I recorded it, because I like to perform them on stage to kind of find out what they are before I record them.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like play around, see what sticks, see what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
Not precious. I don't feel like I need to hide it from anybody and then like, oh, the algorithm's going to, it'll know that it's been out there.
Totally.
There's the song Hands that is now kind of like this weird twisted dub track. It was originally a waltz that I wrote on a piano. And so I wanted to see like, oh, like how does that sound if we go back to its foundations as a waltz? Like, how does that land now? Yeah. And it was fun. I would go back and record all of Shades in a different way now.
Yeah.
Like if I might do that someday.
I love the idea though of you having these like really lavish, opulent songs, but then stripping them down to their like crystalline skeletons or something. And that's definitely what that EP sounds like to me. It is so beautiful. And I just want to shout out Marissa Nadler just because I love her music too. And she accompanies you on one of the tracks and she's so lovely. My word.
She's so cool. Yeah, she's a legend.
Absolutely. So in our final moments together, I'm curious if there's a word or certain language that feels resonant to you now in regard to your own magic, your own spirituality. I use the word witch among many other words when I'm talking about myself. Are there certain words that resonate for you when you're pointing towards your own magic?
I would think servant. I believe that I'm here as a servant of the divine. More than which, I've always really thought of myself as like a priest, really.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I love that.
There's a real element of prayer going into all of this and devotion.
Yeah. I know we already talked about that beautiful song, Instrument of War, but it seems like an inversion of a prayer at the beginning. Is it like the prayer of St. Francis? Is that right?
It is. Very few people have called that forth, but yes, it is the inversion of the prayer of St. Francis.
I love that prayer. And I was raised Jewish and I'm pagan, still Jewish. You don't really give your membership card back. But I love that prayer so much. And I thought I recognized some of the language. And my understanding is that you went to Catholic school and you do have or had a relationship to Catholicism. And is that still there for you? Is that still something that holds you? Or is that something you felt like you had to reject?
I would say I'm an animist, but I consider myself probably at my core to be Catholicized Christian. Like I'm very much all about the Christ consciousness, and I work with a lot of energies that the Catholic Church acknowledges.
I love hearing that because I feel like, obviously, and I don't want to go too far down this road, but obviously, like the fundamentalist Christian right has really taken the reins of a lot of the conversation around Christianity. And it's such a bummer because my husband's dad is an Episcopal priest. And these are like lovely people. My brother-in-law is gay and we were at his queer wedding. There wasn't like this feeling of hatred. And in fact, Christianity, as I believe all religions, has at its core the idea of love. Like that's the whole point. Yeah.
I mean, that is what the Christ is ultimately. The Christ before Jesus. The Christ has come in many, many forms. And I know like there are people out there who would burn me for saying that at this point. But the Christ has come in many forms and Jesus was just an avatar for it. And ultimately it is love. And that's at the basis of everything. And yeah. But I also love saints too. I just love saints.
I do too.
Ugh.
I'm a little jealous of the saints, I gotta say. I wish we had more saints in, my upbringing.
Yeah.
They're so cool. All their
They're so
weird
cool.
stories with like St. Lucy with her plate of eyeballs. And,
Oh
my God.
Plate of eyeballs. Yeah.
It's good shit.
In my house, I won this painting on an online auction. It was super cheap of Santa Barbara. And the shipping was weirdly expensive. And I was like, why is this so expensive? And it showed up and it was 9 feet long.
Whoa.
Massive painting of Santa Barbara, who is the patron saint of lightning, which is very cool.
Wow.
And electricians.
Love it.
There's only one place that this painting would fit in this weird stairwell. But yeah, my whole house is kind of a shrine to Santa Barbara at this point, which is pretty hilarious.
Did you start loving her when you were a child?
No. I just mean that de facto became a shrine because it's the largest thing in the house.
Oh, I see. Well, she clearly wants to be worshipped and adored by you, my friend. She made
does.
herself known in a very big, big way.
She did, yeah.
How fabulous. Well, listen, I just am so grateful to you, and I love your music so much. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing you live yet, but I'm going to make sure that changes. And in the meantime, can you just let us know, where can we find you in the world? Are you touring? Do you have new music coming out? Tell us all the goodies.
I am not touring at the moment. I just came off of a really big, 2024 was wall to wall for me. And so I'm now coming into a composting and
incubation
stage.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be playing at the Los Angeles Folk Festival March 22nd, the same night as Emmylou Harris, which is pretty rad.
Whoa. Have you met her?
I have. I've spent some time with her, and she's incredible.
Ugh.
She's a really rad lady.
Talk about a saint.
She is a saint. Patron
Saint of lightning.
Sure. Yes, exactly. So I'll be playing there, and it's a wildfire benefit. All the proceeds are going to the victims of the fires. So there, and then otherwise, I've got records out wherever you want to find them, and I'm online on the Instagram, and I'm sure the record label has a TikTok for me, which I don't interact with, but, but you can go there. Yeah,
very wise.
Let me know. Let me know what's on there.
Fabulous. Well, it has been such a true delight to get to speak with you, and really a delight to get to go really deep on your music. I listen to you all the time anyway, but the last few days it's been nothing but you, and boy, what a pleasure that's been.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Danielle, and best of luck with everything, and I will catch you on the road someday.
Awesome. Thank you.
That's it for the show. Thank you again to Vera Sola, aka Danielle Aykroyd, for sharing her vibrant voice with me. Do you have questions, feedback, need some witchly advice, or just want to share something magical that happened to you recently? Drop us an email or voice message over at witchwavepodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, and you just might make it on the Witch Wire. The Witch Wave is a Phantasmaphile production written and produced by me, Pam Grossman. This episode was recorded, edited, and mixed by Josh Wilcox and/or Walter Nordquist and myself. Our theme music is the song Hand and I by Lycanthia. Our new Witch Wave logo was designed by Thunderwing. Special thanks go to Matt Freeman, Laura Antal, and Cece Pascal. You can check out information about this and other episodes on our website, and now buy Witch Wave merch at witchwavepodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at witchwavepod, and you can check out my witch emoji for iPhone by going to witchemoji.com or downloading it in the App Store. My books, Waking the Witch from Gallery Books and Witchcraft from Toshin, are available everywhere now. And if you want more Witch Wave, or you would just like to support the show, please join us over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/witchwave. Thank you so much for listening. Witches are the future. I'll catch you next time on The Witch Wave.